Make sure when you are graphing that you read the directions first, because some of the problems actually say to complete the square and change from standard form to vertex form before graphing. So in this example, we're going to switch from standard form to vertex form. And the leading coefficient is not 1, which makes this process a little bit more difficult. So the first thing that we want to do is factor the leading coefficient out of the quadratic term and the linear term, but not out of the constant. And the first mistake that students make is they try to factor a 2 out of the 36, but the 36 is not inside of the parentheses. So the next thing we're going to do is complete the square because the leading coefficient is now 1. In order to do that, I'm going to use the formula b over 2 squared. And b in this case is now negative 8. We're not going to go back to the negative 16 in the original equation. So I'm going to take negative 8 and divide it by 2, which gives me negative 4, and square that value and come up with a positive 16. So the next mistake that students make is they use the wrong b value. We want to use the negative 8 and not the negative 16. The next part that I want to do is balance the equation, and a huge mistake that's common is to take the positive 16 that we just found and put a negative 16 out at the end, because when the leading coefficient is 1, it is that simple. However, there is a 2 out in front as the leading coefficient, and we need to make sure that we multiply this with the 16 first, because what we actually did is we added 32 to the entire equation. If I were to go and distribute the 2 back in, there would be a 32 that was actually added. So the opposite of that is to subtract 32 at the very end. The next step is I'm going to go and factor the polynomial that's inside of the parentheses, the x squared minus 8x plus 16. And you could go back to the old factoring methods that say what adds to be negative 8 and multiplies to be 16. Or the quick way to do it is to go to the negative 8 and take half of that number, which is negative 4, put it in parentheses and square it, because negative 4 plus negative 4 is negative 8, and negative 4 times negative 4 is 16. Outside of the parentheses, I combine like terms, and it's now in vertex form. Since it's in vertex form, I can identify the vertex as 4, 4. The opposite of the negative 4, the same as the positive 4. And I can go plot 4, 4. I know the pattern to graph a parabola quickly is out 1, up 1, out 2, up 4, out 3, up 9, because 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9. However, there is a multiplier of 2 out in front, so I'm going to double all of these values. So I go to the vertex and I go out 1 and up 2 on both sides. I go back to the vertex and I go out 2 and up 8. And that actually puts me off of the graph. So I'm going to go ahead and connect these 3 points as best as I can. And there's my parabola.